Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Lies We Left podcast. I'm here with my sisters. My name is Erin, and this is where we talk about some hard stuff. But today, so far, we've talked about, we've talked about just our life so far, the childhood that we grew up in, just kind of minorly touched on that. But I think we decided that I think it would be better for the listeners to hear, each of our individual stories. And so we're going to start that off with my sister, Brooke. But before we start off with my sister, does everyone introduce themselves? All right, I'm Erin.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Brooke.
So we're going to start this off with talking about Brooke's story. And Brooke's going to share with us, her childhood, her growing up, and everything. So, Brooke, take it away.
I kind of, in thinking about how to start this out with, where do you even begin? The one thing I can remember growing up is never feeling like I was legitimate, like I didn't have worth. And that's kind of where the story starts. Think of the youngest memory, like the earliest memory you have as a child. It could be you riding your bike. It could be playing ball. For me, my earliest childhood memory was being penetrated by someone in the church and having satanic ritual abuse things happen to me with dead animals. That's my earliest memory. Yeah.
I'm sorry, before you go any, can you elaborate on that?
Like dead snakes.
Go back, the satanic what?
Ritual abuse.
What?
Like I just remember him chanting these things over me and then saying, God hates me. I mean, you know how terrified.
How old were you?
When it finally came out when I was older, Dad had equated it to being I was either 3 or 4 years old.
Oh man, this is gonna be rough.
Welcome
Anyway.
to our podcast, guys. We told you it was going to be triggering.
Some tequila. Gosh.
Yeah, saying a lot. There was a rape at a mall bathroom when I was, I think, 10 or 11. It was the janitor cleaning the bathroom. That was, lots of fun. Flash forward, the sexual abuse comes out when I'm 16 years old to my parents. Prior to that, I had no outlet. Mind you, we were very sheltered growing up. I was very naive. I did not know what bulimia was. I just knew I couldn't talk about my feelings. I didn't have a safe place. And for whatever reason, I felt very nauseous. And when I started throwing up, I felt better. Again, never knew about bulimia. Just, it was, But anyway.
How old were you when you started throwing up?
The same year that it was all kind of coming out, 16 years old was when it started, and it went on for about 12 years later.
And you had never known about bulimia?
No, not at that point.
How did you, how did your mind compute, oh, I should throw up?
I think it was an anxiety attack. I remember being in the bathroom, working myself up, and I was just so nervous and sick to my stomach, and I just started throwing up, and it felt so good. It was like this rush of serotonin. It felt like I was in control, like I had control. It was almost like it was getting something evil out of me. That's kind of how it felt, and I felt better. It was self-soothing in a way.
You were, if I may just throw something in there, though, you were very much treated like you were an evil individual.
Yeah.
You were treated like you were the odd one. You were treated like, well, you're the problem child.
Yeah.
Kind of an aura of rejection.
Yes,
maybe.
very much so.
If I'm not, I don't want to add to your story or put words into your mouth, but that was very much my perspective, being so close in age to you, seeing how other people reacted to you.
Yeah. So my first real sexual experience was when I was 19. So everybody who knew me growing up thought I lost my virginity when I was 15. I didn't. I waited till I was 19, guys. I wasn't the slut you all thought I was. But that was my first, like, me giving myself, like, okay, I trust this person enough, you know, to do this. And of course that relationship ended and it broke my heart in a million pieces. I moved out at 19. I got date raped when I was 20. And from that date rape, I contracted genital herpes. And again, I knew about AIDS, but we didn't have any sexual education. We knew nothing about, any kind of STDs or anything like that. So I really thought when the doctor said you have genital herpes that I was dying. I was like, oh my God, I've got AIDS. I'm going to die. That was pretty traumatic. A couple of years later, I get pregnant and I was going to have an abortion and I was afraid. I was afraid and fear ruled that decision. I did not think a man would love me with a baby. And looking back, I made the best decision, even though it was made in fear, because who would be watching that precious little girl when I had to work? It would have been our mother who abused us. So that actually worked out well. But the traumatic thing about placing an adoption was I had already helped raise you guys. I knew what I was giving up. So it was a different kind of hurt that it would take many, many years to heal from. A nonprofit in Florida found out about my story and they paid me to move out there. And I started to talk to teenagers every day about 3 or 4 times, just going over, the trauma and stuff that I had been through. And this is 2 or 3 months after I had placed an adoption, not healed. It was in my face all the time. When I moved back to Texas, I got into a very horrible relationship. It was just I was broken in so many ways. I was fearful of everything and I didn't want to live. I did meth once and I did crack cocaine once. And
Okay, how was that? I've always wondered.
I didn't know what I was doing. This sounds really bad, but I was very suicidal, walked into a CVS in Austin, found a guy and went up to him and I said, I want to die. Can you please tell me where I can get some drugs? Because I just don't want to live. And he goes, are you a cop? And I just started crying and he said, okay, come with me.
I'll help you die.
And that was the first time I did crack cocaine. But he never told me what it was till the next day. The meth
What happened
was...
the next day?
Well, Rachel, what was I like the next day? You were there for me coming off that.
You were asleep. Yeah.
Is that all you do whenever you're on crack cocaine is sleep?
I don't think that's probably not all you did, because you kind of acted like you were a little hungover too. So I don't know.
It was just a very low point. The meth was the same kind of situation. I had asked someone for cocaine and they gave me a white powder and I snorted it and couldn't understand why I was up for 3 days. And I texted the guy and was like, what kind of cocaine was this? And he said, it's angel dust. And when I Googled angel dust, the faces of meth came up. And I never did that ever again. Did cocaine several times. There was never a habit. It was just, when I say I was drunk all the time, It was one bad, I just wanted to die. And I was too afraid to take my own life. There were several instances where I tried to, but God never allowed that to happen. By now, I've gotten pregnant. Oh, in that time of the drugs, I started stripping. So yeah, pretty much the low point of my life. And again, the abusive, at the time, boyfriend that eventually became my first husband. I got pregnant. I married him. Well, and even before that, I'm so sorry, guys. This is so...
So you did not get married to the baby daddy of
No.
your first child?
No, I would
Okay.
have married him, but that was not ever going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 abortions from the abusive ex-husband. And
Those were his?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. One was surgical and the other was the pill form.
Did he know that you were getting abortions? Or
Yeah, he paid for them.
Oh, like he wanted you to get an abortion?
He was scared to death. I mean, he knew what he was dating. I was a train wreck. I was a loon. I mean, to be fair, I didn't make life easy on him either. So now we have a son. We're living in a town. I'm isolated away from my family. And I get the courage to make a police report about the abuse going on. And I thought I was doing the right thing. I was nervous. I had a glass of wine with me, and the next day CPS shows up. And that began my 3-year-long journey with CPS and my son and the things that would happen. Now, during this time, my ex-husband, or he's my husband still at this time, he has taken me to 3 different psychiatrists, which have all given me a different diagnosis on top of each other, as well as medication. So I had borderline personality disorder, I had schizophrenia, and bipolar. And I had at least 2 medications for each of those diagnoses. So I was very much controlled. I was out of it, and if I had one drink, I was gone, like just gone. So abuse continued. I was not there to parent. I did not make the best choices. So yeah. Let's see. So during the time when the CPS case happens, I was staying at a hotel, and I met the most kind man who was a profiler for battered women in the court system of Williamson County. And upon meeting him first, he was my lifesaver, because at this point in time, my family wouldn't really have anything to do with me. I hadn't seen Richie in about 2, maybe 3 months. And this man was
And he's your son?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this man was so kind. And CPS, the one thing CPS did get right with my case was they sent me to this Asian psychiatrist who was a Western doctor as well as Eastern medicine. And I had already stopped cold turkey all the medications that I was on. So by the time I get to him, he's like, wait, you're not bipolar. You're not this. You're not that. And he goes, do you have anybody you trust that I can speak to? I need to get some confirmation. So I gave him the man's number, the profiler. And they sat on the phone, and I'm there in the room. And it came down to, yeah, you have ADD, but you definitely are struggling with PTSD and battered wife syndrome. But that was a pivotal moment for me, because 2 men saw something so broken. And their kindness just meant the world to me. The CPS case ended. Later on, I broke my leg, and my son was with me, and my phone was not working. It was dead. I'm hobbling down the road, and I get arrested for child endangerment, because people that were driving on the road saw a lady with a broken foot hobbling, and it looks like I'm drunk. I was never given a breathalyzer test or anything. Eventually, I did beat the court case, and it was removed from a felony to just a traffic violation, reckless driving. But I had to make some hard decisions because the court case had escalated with CPS. I signed paperwork letting my ex-husband at the time take my son out of state. So the last time I saw my little boy was when he was 3 years old. That was the last visit.
How old is he now?
He's 12. So at this point in my life, I'm broken. There's just so much going on. I reconnect with Steven. Our families grew up together, but there was something about Steven. We knew we really, really liked each other, and we started dating. We started living together. Now at this point in time, I'm so afraid of marriage. I'm afraid of love. I'm afraid of, because if anybody were to find out everything truly, and mind you, I'm not even remembering what's going on with the abuse with our mom. Like, that hasn't even hit the surface. I'm just, this is all the stuff that I can remember. So I run away from Steven. I sabotaged the relationship, and I had multiple affairs with men and women. I wasn't worthy, and I was going to make him leave me. In 2013, February the 17th, I had been going to a church, and I loved this pastor. He was a Marine, a pastor's kid himself, and he was so real. I've never heard the word spoke like he did. But I swear to you, it was like hearing the greatest love story for the very first time in my life. I heard, "I love you. Brooke, I love you. You're the reason I died." And I will never forget, everybody else in the room disappeared. And my healing did not come immediately. It was definitely an onion and peeling back layers. There were layers and layers of doctrinal things that were wrong that had to be stripped out of my heart. There were years of abuse. But that was another pivotal moment in my life, was when I heard God loved me and I believed it. Steven and I broke up in 2014, and the 8 months that we were broke up, we couldn't get each other out of our hearts. I moved to Houston with Aaron.
I thought
And
that
your
was
family?
2015. Because Atticus was a baby.
Yeah.
Yes, and he was born in 2015.
Oh, okay. During that time, I was able to reconnect with Aaron because growing up, I don't think we were ever really close. But that, yeah.
There was a big age gap. I mean,
Steven started MMA fighting, and he stopped drinking and smoking pot, and we got back together. At this time, my grandmother died, and then 5 months later, my dad died, which rocked my world. Steven and I got engaged, and then all of a sudden, I was blackmailed by someone who knew about my affairs when Steven and I were first together. So we called off the wedding. Everything came out. And our pastor, who was already doing our premarital classes, he stepped in, and we started doing some heavy counseling. Steven did not know if he could forgive me, and then something one day just snapped. And he just grabbed my face and said, "You are the only one for me. I love you. I love you like nothing else." And I've asked him, "Why did you decide to forgive me and move past that stuff?" And he said that, sorry, I'm so nervous. There was just a healing so deep that I can't explain. And he said, the the greatest thing that could happen with us is that the stuff come out, because had it not, I don't think you would have ever really believed that I loved you in spite of everything. There was a healing so deep that I can't explain. I became vulnerable, almost pure, cherished, and I finally knew and believed it. And there was something in marriage is so joyful. Then the sexual abuse with our mom came out, and started getting into EMDR therapy, and here we are. You know, several things definitely legitimized me. It was learning that everything I was taught growing up was all a lie. That there was a God who loved me, no matter what I did. If I chose him or not, he still loved me. Stephen, when everything from my past mistakes and sins were uncovered, because it had to be uncovered. There was no way I could walk around with this gaping hole in my heart. It has to be uncovered. And I would say to anyone that has trauma, you've got to let it out. Because if you don't, you will become the abuser. You will hurt people. Because I did it.
Or you'll just numb yourself until
yeah.
you just lose your voice.
Definitely. You know, encountering love is very different from just knowing what it is. And if you were to talk to me today, nobody would know that any of these things had happened to me. And I love that. Because I'm vulnerable, I'm kind, and I'm not a victim. So that's about it.
So I have a question.
Well, hold on. Let's thank the individual for
thank
saying,
you.
Yes, this was
for speaking.
Yeah. I know that was really hard, but you did great.
No, I mean, it takes a lot of courage, I think, to say all those details.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not just telling us sisters.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of the stuff we already knew. Some of the stuff, it appears that some of us didn't know.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't change anything.
Yeah. And so thank you for telling us, all of us that.
I'm dying to ask you something, though. So you had mentioned that in your, like, you look back and you see that there were a lot of things that you know now to not be true.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those things? Or what are some of those things, and what are the things that you struggle with now from your past that were kind of ingrained in you that you still, like, deal with today?
I definitely feel very deeply when someone doesn't like me and I'm not wanted. And I already have that kind of personality. You either love me or you hate me. But I definitely hyper focus on it. It makes me very nervous. I don't like being around a lot of people. I'd much rather have a one-on-one conversation. Body dysphoria is a big thing for me. I don't know if I ever will really like my body. Yeah. And fear. It's very hard for me to be fearless. There's a lot of things in my life that I missed out on because I just wasn't brave.
What's something these are two questions. How did you see yourself as a child? And how do you think other people saw you as a child?
For whatever reason, I really did believe I was evil. I believed that I was trash because that's how I was treated. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted me around. Mm-hmm. I never, to this day, I still don't know. What was I like as a kid? Why did everybody hate me? I don't understand.
And you really feel like everybody hated you. Was there anyone in the church growing up that you felt like liked you?
There was one lady, and she knows who she is because I have documented it very well on Facebook, that she was kind. She asked me questions about myself. Brooke, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she was so kind to me. And of course, she would be the one who was outed for divorcing someone, and she was they turned her into the bad person too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely. And then I had a friendship with a friend of mine I was very close to growing up, and he actually stopped one of the abuse instances when I was 3 or 4 years old, and he was very, very precious to me.
Yeah, I remember seeing pictures. I think I met him as a younger kid, but I remember seeing pictures, and you always looked so happy with him in those pictures.
Yeah.
Man, this is a lot of hard stuff.
It's very sad that, like, that's how you were treated as a kid. Like, that just makes me sad. I always felt bad for you. Being my big sister. I mean, because I idolized you. You know, you made all the adults get on their toes. You know, you commanded everybody's attention, but for whatever reason, I very much saw that you were treated with kind of a constant rejection. And kids pick up on that.
Yeah, they do.
Kids absolutely pick up on that.
They know when
you don't
they're
even
wanted.
have to say anything. All you have to do is have an attitude, and they pick up on it.
Yep.
I feel like you weren't, and I noticed this even from being a kid and then being a teenager, and I feel like you weren't, like, taken seriously for some reason, especially by mom and dad, or by, I just...
And that's with the gross assumption that they took anything seriously other than themselves, which they didn't.
Yeah.
And Jesus.
You know,
Well, and it took Stephen. It took Stephen putting the pieces together, because the interesting part was when all the sexual abuse came out and the incest with Cindy, Stephen was the one that said, "I never liked your mom. I've never liked her."
You're like, you know what? Neither have I.
Well, but then he goes on and he said, "I couldn't understand how a mother could let a 3 or 4-year-old be sexually abused and not notice it." And he goes, "Brooke, she had a medication problem." And we had already confirmed it with his mom, that when his mom joined the church, she was told by another lady, "If you take any prescription pills, hide them from Cindy, because she's got sneaky fingers." And Stephen said, "I really think your mom knew what was going on, and she traded you to this person." Yeah.
Wow.
So I have a question. So through your story, I don't think you really touched on it, and if you did, it wasn't for that long. How do you, I'm trying to think of how to word this. How would you, like, looking back on your life and looking now, like, what is it that helped you, I don't want to say change, but
Evolve, maybe?
yeah, like, what, so for example, like, what helped you stop the drugs, the alcohol, the things that you were into at the time, like, during those periods of your life, like, what got you away from those things?
Because I was never addicted to any of them, there was never, like, a chemical addiction. It was when I got to the surface, the root surface of the problem. When you get down to the root, there was no addiction.
That's really big. I think that's for a lot of people,
And
as a matter of fact.
I couldn't understand why our mother was so damned and determined to make me an alcoholic like her when she started going into AA. Because I would go to the meetings and I'd be like, wait, that's not me. I know that sounds weird. Don't most alcoholics say they're not? But, you know, I stopped everything cold turkey. And also I looked at what I had sowed, if you will. I didn't like who I was. I wanted to be different. I wanted a good life. And it was kind of a more rebellious streak in me too of F you, I'm going to have the best life ever. I will never be someone's victim. I can have a good life.
So, and I thought about something. So, kind of transitioning from some of the really sad and depressing stuff that we've been talking about, but it's also a really great story at the same time. One of the things, if you don't know Brooke, is that Brooke is probably like one of the most creative people that I know, and is like insanely intelligent. Like intelligent that like she'll tell me stuff and I'm like, where do you even learn this? Like, I don't even, do y'all feel that way? Like sometimes you just hear something and you're like, how do you, I don't know how you like retain so much, but you are just like one of the most creative
She
and
needs to be
intelligent
on
people.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? We win. Because she has all this random information. I'm like, who needs to know about a cat?
But here's my
Something.
Here's my
I don't know. I don't know.
Here's my question, because Rachel is a very artistic person, so I'm surprised that this wouldn't be her question, but I'm going to ask Brooke this question. Brooke, what sparked your creativity?
Yeah, Rachel,
Like-
why didn't you ask that question?
No, I could just see since
Because Rachel doesn't like talking about her artistic side.
well, Rachel, your story will be in the next episode.
That
so
ain't gonna be in the story.
oh.
What was the original question?
We can't lie
So
to
my question to you, Brooke, is what got you to, like, what sparked your creativity? When did you notice you became so creative? I know that sounds like a weird question, but it ties in.
Mechanics, anything mechanical always piqued my interest. I guess it was reading Rainbow.
You were that
Rainbow.
as the
Butterfly
sister.
in the sky.
Did anybody talk about the fact that Brooke's the oldest? Did anybody talk about
I
that?
believe we covered it.
Okay,
at some
Brooke's
point in
the
time.
oldest, and I'm 2 years. I was born 2 years after Brooke. I feel like, I could be wrong, it's very much just who Brooke is. Like, I would just see her draw something when I was a little kid and just be awestruck. Like, how in the world did you just draw that?
Reading
very-
Rainbow.
It's very, yeah, it's very natural. And like, I saw her one day, she had just moved into an apartment, and she took twigs and parts from a bush, and she's pulling these things out of a bush, and I'm like, are you okay? She's like, oh yeah, I'm getting this for my vase. And I'm like, a bush. And she's like, well, not the bush. I'm going to take part of the bush out, but help me pull this up. And I'm like, oh, lovely. So we go up to the apartment, and she transforms these brushes and branches, and she transforms it into this like absolute floral masterpiece. And I'm like, what did I just watch?
I don't remember
How
this
did-
at all.
I don't know. It happened, and I was just like, I sometimes make dinner for myself. I don't know.
Well, I'm
how-
not, also when you grow up poor, you become your own little imagination. Everything is a toy. Everything is, you want beautiful things. So when you grow up poor,
I could be wrong though, because I don't know if I'm like, this is just me, but I've noticed with kids who are in an abusive situation and they're not played with, they're not, nurtured, they resort to their imagination.
yeah.
They resort
man.
to thinking whatever thoughts they have, imagining getting into a different world so that
Yep.
they don't have to live into the world. Do you feel like that played a part?
Oh, definitely.
in your creativity?
Absolutely.
You're like, hey, in my mind, I can be a princess.
I think that's why I tried to get into acting, because I could never make up my mind of what I wanted to do. But here's a profession where I can pretend to be every profession that I don't have to go to school for.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so I remember you talking about our grandmother, our Nona, and how, our parents would keep us from them as much as they could, because they lived in Oklahoma, we lived in Texas, but then also I believe anytime that we went over there,
Yeah.
someone would talk to either our dad or our mother, and say, hey, the way that you're raising them is wrong.
Yeah.
And so,
Are you serious?
yeah, I believe,
I did not know this.
yeah.
Well, because when you came around, things started changing. No, well, not because you came around, but like you came so late in the game. Sorry. But because you came later in the game, like I have only like Dad's mom, I have only met like 4 times. And only seen 4 times, and that was every bit by design. Like we were kept from our family. We're kept from that side of the family, and whenever they would bring us up there, Dad would get a lecture or
Well, didn't our aunt say that, like, when they first brought me up as a baby, they were spanking me?
Mm-hmm. Yep. As a baby,
yeah.
our mother and father spanked you. Yep.
Like an infant?
Apparently.
Oh my gosh. Where were you going with what you were saying, by the way?
Well, what was that relationship like?
With Grandma?
Yeah.
It was, I wanted to just run away and stay with her forever.
Yes.
She made everything fun. She would put on Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra in the kitchen and just cook. And she would pick me up so gently and just sit me up there with my apron that was way too big for me and a wooden spoon. Oh, Bruca, you got to stir it. Stir it good.
Our grandmother is from Italy.
Yes, that was, they get that's an Italian accent.
Okay.
It wasn't
It's
Australian.
been a while since your acting classes, so I just didn't know. No, I'm just joking.
Very funny. No, but she just, and she would always say, Bruca, life is a food. Food is a life. And I remember, because Mom and Dad would never let us put the spoon back in the pot. And, oh, Bruca, it's all right. No one you need to know. You know, she just loved me. I remember the ritual. She was definitely Catholic, and you could tell she would have her little robe on and her house shoes, and she'd take them off, and then she'd kneel by the bed.
Well, she had Catholicism in her background, but I
Yeah.
believe at the time she wasn't Catholic, right?
Yeah, she wasn't, but you could still see it. And I felt so safe with her. She always made sure when I came up there that I had a pair of pajamas and a robe, because little girls always had robes.
That's so cute.
But yeah, my grandma was more of a mom to me than Cindy ever was.
The grandma you saw 6 times before she passed away.
But I went up there because you had allergies, and there were several trips where Dad and I went without you. So there were, because we had moved someone from Arkansas, and it took like 2 trips. And then also Grandma came down when Mom went into labor with Aaron. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember great-granddad being very kind to me too. It was just night and day. Like, I was loved by this side of the family, and I couldn't understand why. I was like, okay, so why am I so bad and evil over here, but I'm loved and adored on this side?
So, like, going back, or, like, I don't know, how do I word this? Because there's a lot, especially in CPS, because I work for CPS, there's a lot of families who alienate their children from what they call the bad side of the family, but it's really just because they're the ones abusing, and the bad side of the family is the one calling them out on it. What do you wish, not calling, dad's side of the family out, saying that they should have done something else, because I truly believe that they did as much as they could. I mean, maybe a CPS report could have been made, but honestly, back then with
Nobody would have
Texas,
paid attention to it.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it
with
was the
CPS
80s.
Yeah,
It-
CPS, it was just a different entity
Yeah.
back then, so probably not much would have been done. But I guess for anyone listening who's in that situation, who has a niece, a nephew, a grandchild who's in an abusive situation, what do you suggest for them?
You should always speak up for the person without a voice. It doesn't matter happens to you as far as consequences, that is a voiceless individual.
Mm-hmm.
And it is your responsibility. Screw your feelings. Screw anything bad that happens to you. You're the adult and you can take it. The other thing I would say is kids remember how you treat them. They remember how you make them feel.
Mm.
If you have nieces, nephews, or any family members that are being abused, just love them. Even if you can't understand them, just get on their level because they're going to remember how you made them feel. And speak out. You know, that really hurt when someone hit you like that, right? That's not right. You shouldn't be hit. Give those intelligent questions to the kids because they're going to talk to their friends about it. They might bring it up to a teacher. But, yeah.
Oh, question. Okay, so about the bulimia. How long did you struggle with that?
About 12 years.
Okay, so what finally got to the point where you stopped?
I had to. There was a point where I couldn't keep food down. There's a part in the back of the throat that if you damage it, there's no really going forward. People don't talk about the ugly side of bulimia in that there's facial hair that you get. If you throw up, it creates an overproduction of hormones. My teeth are my gums are pretty bad. And also my husband just really watches out for me. And he adores me. He tells me I'm beautiful. And I'm like, you didn't like it when I was like stick then? No, there was nothing to grab onto, you know, but he won't let me go there. I think the last time I threw up was the day of Dad's memorial because I was just so grief stricken. But that was the last time. But that was a hard one to beat. Out of everything, that was the true addiction in my
Really?
life. Yeah.
Well, it was
Yeah.
something that gave you control.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have control of anything that was going on in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think it's crazy how your story is just riddled with like sexual abuse, with what's the word I'm looking for? Like just people assuming that you are sexually active or you're promiscuous.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much your story is just riddled with that.
Yeah.
I remember being young and thinking that something was wrong with you because of how all the adults in the church talked about you.
Really?
Not all of the adults. I won't say that. There were a few adults who didn't say anything, but I remember adults talking about you. And it's like you were just this promiscuous girl who wore black nail polish and wore thongs. Okay, so I guess I don't know, like, because you know how like hipster jeans were in?
Yeah.
Or like, right?
Yeah.
Is that what they were called?
Lowriders.
Lowriders. Are you sure they were called lowriders?
Well,
I'm pretty sure they weren't called hipsters.
Well, what's hipster jeans? I don't know.
I don't
Anyways.
know.
And I remember one time, I think this is how Dad and Mom found out that you wore a thong, was because your jeans were like low or something. You bent over and part of the thong showed. And so people in the church talked about that.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Little does everyone know, thongs are way more comfortable. Anyways.
Well, going commando is a lot better. I will
Oh my
advocate for
God.
that.
No, granny panties.
What?
No, Ashley.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. No, but okay, the one thing that I never put the pieces together when I came out about the sexual abuse at 16. Cindy was very angry at me. She was angry. The day she drove me to my first therapy appointment, she would not talk to me, and I could never figure out like what I did wrong. And that was another thing that solidified in Stephen's mind. You know what? I think you were given to this man. And she knew exactly what was going on.
It could also be like a weird, like, jealous thing.
I don't know.
Maybe too.
She was
I don't
very
know.
narcissistic, so
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah, but, you know, life is really... There's joy. There's life after all this abuse. Keep trying. Keep going to people where you feel loved. Try EMDR therapy. It's so expensive, but it's
What-
worth every penny.
What was that experience like for you
Oh,
personally? Not talking about me and
man.
Aaron, but how was it for you personally dealing with that, and what kind of brought you to needing to do that for yourself?
I guess Aaron was the first one who started with our therapist. We all see the same therapist, minus Rachel, for EMDR therapy. And so I just took Aaron's word. I don't know. Were you going at this point, Ashley, or?
No, I went after y'all.
Okay. There was a boldness about her. There was something I just know. I've known ever since I was a little girl who were safe people to be around. And I felt safe. The first experience with having the tappers on, I'll call them tappers. I don't know what they're called, but it's a piece of machine that you hold in each of your hand, and they vibrate at a speed that you feel comfortable with. And you're closing your eyes, and you've established parts of you during your history. And for me, one of those parts was little girl Brooke, the part of, the little girl. And then there was trash can Brooke. And we built all these versions of Brooke a house. And we gave all these versions something that she never had. Something where they could feel safe. And that first therapy, I wept and I wept and I wept after it was over, and Danielle just held me while I just cried. And I opened my eyes and I didn't hear any voices. I didn't even know that there were voices, but it was like there was this peace. And everything was put in its place. And I'm a very organized person. I'm definitely a Fraser type OCD. I have to have control. And everything, by just going through this process, here was the feeling of being poor here. Here was lack of education over here. Here was a sexual abuse over here in this box. And it was okay for me to talk to these parts and just let them be and get them involved in feeling like I was legitimate, like there was something to me. It was very freeing, very healing. The more we dove into the sexual abuse with Cindy, and especially hearing from you guys, it broke my heart, and I was so angry. And I had an incredible back pain that would not go away in my lower back. And my therapist said, have you tried talking to your parts? Which part is it? And I said, it's all of them. I don't like what's going on. My sisters were hurt. And she said, okay, who do you trust more than anyone? And I said, well, Stephen. And she said, okay, when you go home, I want you to have Stephen lightly stroke your back. And I was like, no, that's not happening. And she was like, why not? And I said, well, because he can't do it gentle. He has to do it rough. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I said, gentle touches trigger me, because that's what had happened with Cindy. She was very gentle. And it developed me to see it as bad. And there was something that happened. She was like, no, you've got to be vulnerable. And I promise you something big is going to happen if you just trust it. And it was the craziest thing. I tell Stephen And he looks at me and he was like, okay, I'm willing to try it. Anything that will help you from experiencing pain. And he did it, stroking my back, almost barely touching my back, and just saying, Brooke and all the other parts of Brooke, you are loved, you are liked, you're provided for, you're cared for. Nothing evil is ever going to happen to you again. I'm always going to be here for you. I will always choose you. You will always have a home, a bed to sleep in, and food to eat. I swear to you guys, the pain went away.
Steven's a good man.
He's a very good man. He's the best. But, there are things that trigger me, and the pain does come back in my back. And we do that. And now I'm to the point where I can take over when he's not there, and I just talk to myself and just remind that those little different versions of Brooke, hey, it's okay. You're loved. You're liked. You're weird, but that's okay.
So what's something that you wish that you could tell yourself, knowing what you know now, and if you could like go back in time at whatever age you feel like you needed to hear it the most, what age would that be, and what would you tell yourself?
I really don't know, because I think I would have given her hope at any age. I would have come to her at different ages and said, guess what? Life is beautiful. Just hold on. Everything you've gone through, it's not right. It's not fair. And some of these choices will be yours that are big boo-boos, but in the end, it's all going to be worth it. Just keep trying and don't give up hope. And I would have definitely told myself to go to architect school.
Man. What is, out of all the topics that you discussed today, what is one of the hardest ones for you to talk about? Or what was one of the hardest ones?
The adoption and my son.
What's something, this might make me cry. You know, we don't know what's going to ever happen with your son, you know, our nephew.
Yeah.
But what's something you want to tell him? Because he might hear this one day.
That he was so loved and is loved. And even though you don't remember me, like, who could remember something as young as, 3, there's not a day that goes by that I don't pray for you. And I pray specifically that God keeps covenant between him and I. And that he becomes a man of integrity and loves Jesus. And I hope that there's not a hole in his heart because I'm not there. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
How did you guys see me growing up?
I saw you as beautiful. I remember, like...
We do not have one ugly sister in our family.
No.
Just saying.
No. No, but, I mean, I was the redheaded stepchild with glasses and freckles, and at that point in time, like, having freckles was something that you were made fun of for. Like,
if I had known that people did that to you, I would have, like, come unglued.
That's for a different episode. Anyways. But I remember thinking, like, because, you know, part of my story is just viewing other women and just thinking, like, God, you're so flawless. And then just looking at my body and just thinking, well, what the hell happened here? Thanks, God, for messing this up. You know, but I remember thinking you were very beautiful. And then, like, looking up to you, but then also confused as to why no one really liked you. And then almost like this dual side of, well, I guess I shouldn't like her or not, like, I should think bad things of her because everyone else around me thinks bad things of her.
That makes sense.
I think for me, I always thought you were really fun as a kid. I always liked going in your room. I also like going in Rachel's room, but that's for a different episode.
Well, they shared a room.
I was about to say.
Oh, yeah, y'all did. Well, I guess I was thinking when she had the garage converted at one point. That's more of what I was thinking.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a
But-
cool room.
Same
Yeah,
200
it was
square feet.
cool. Like, just the things that you had in there, I just was always intrigued. And
You were intrigued by the Vin Diesel poster I had up.
wasn't I?
Yes.
I don't
Oh.
think anyone
I'm
in
pretty
our
sure
family
you
liked.
were the only
Yeah,
person
I've
ever
never
intrigued
thought
by
Vin
Vin
Diesel.
Diesel.
Thought.
No.
Never.
Oh, can I sidebar? Can I please
Yes,
sidebar?
please.
So my son is watching Fast and Furious,
Oh my gosh.
and I was like, "Can I ruin this whole series for you?" And he was like, "Why would you want to do that?" And I was like, "I just feel the need to."
You didn't.
I did.
Did you tell him that
I
Paul Walker
did.
died?
I told him, "No, oh, I'm not heartless, guys. I'm just sadistic a little bit." No, I walked up and I was like, "Who does Vin Diesel look like?" And he was like, who should he look like? And I was like, well, he kind of looks like somebody in our extended family, somebody that your Auntie Brooke had the biggest crush on.
Oh
And then
my
I turned around
gosh.
and I walked out and he was like, "I hate your guts."
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
I thought you.
He was like, "Vin Diesel looks like Steven." Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
No, okay. I like bald guys, and it started with Yul Brynner.
Oh my
I didn't know that. I thought it was Vin
Oh,
Diesel.
no. Yul Brynner. He,
He
has
was
the
like-
voice. He's
He
got
was
the
like,
hands.
"So are you
like,
serious? She really liked this and she liked Vin Diesel." He was like, "I can't watch this anymore." And
Y'all-
he turned it off.
Anyway, I thought growing up you were fun, and I also viewed you as someone that was safe.
aw.
I'm serious. Like, I really do mean that. I viewed all of y'all that way. But
You ratted me out unintentionally
How?
whenever I told my parents that I was working a shift at Chick-fil-A, and instead I went and met my boyfriend.
I'm so sorry.
And then you decided to take our mother to Chick-fil-A to check on me, and then it was closing time, and you didn't see me, and you were like, "Erin's getting molested."
Oh, I do remember that. I really thought you had been kidnapped. I really did think that.
That's funny.
so Brooke used to wake me up at like 2 a.m. Such an ungodly hour. 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and even 5 in the morning, even sometimes 6
Okay,
in the
we
morning.
get it,
Anyway,
Golly.
you used to come and wake me up and take me to Whataburger.
Yeah. I love
At
that.
5 in the morning?
Yes, she would
Oh.
wake me up at, no, it wasn't 5 in the morning. It was like 2 in the morning.
In the
And I'd be
name of
half
Jesus,
awake,
no.
and she would get me a chicken strip dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get gravy and
Then we'd go to Walmart. And one time we went when there was a tornado warning or watch or whatever, and Ashley freaked out. She was like, "We're gonna die! We're gonna die!" And I was like, "Ashley, we're not gonna die."
I
It's
probably thought that.
Yeah, you were very much a god in my eyes as a kid because you were my big sister. There was a lot of really weird dynamics because of us being in that. I hate using the word church because it wasn't a church, and whatever we were in growing up, there was a lot of social pressure through that dynamic, in which, because I, from a very, very young age, knew absolutely without a shadow of a doubt that mom wasn't trustworthy and that dad wasn't trustworthy. Both of them were incredibly scary people to me, very much so. My safe place was a closet. And
When did you come out of the closet?
right, I didn't. If I was smart, I didn't. I had a flashlight in there. I had a pillow and a blanket, and I had books, and that's where I tried to spend as much as my free time would allow. But when I decided to go out, I was only okay if I was with you.
I never knew that.
Oh yeah, you remember that closet? And
No, the closet. I remember we would. There
remember
was like
we
a sack-
piled
yeah
flashlights and
We'd
books,
crawl
and there
to
were
the very
shelves,
top.
and we just sit out in there for hours.
Books
I
were-
would stay in there as long as I possibly
I
could.
will say that books for Rachel and I were the key to our imagination. Like it just, and I guess that's why we loved reading Rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
just loved
Yeah.
books.
But the dynamic, people very much, because I had that personality, of course, people were like, oh, Rachel's the easy child, and Brooke is the complicated, high-strung, what do they call it? Strong-willed,
Yeah.
BS, that I just call BS to now.
Yeah.
And it created a lot of tension between you and I for a very long time. When we evolved into teenagers, it became, you can't go here unless you take Rachel with you.
Yeah.
Ugh, don't ever do that to your kids. It's ridiculous. And the kid that doesn't want to be drug places has to be drug places, and you had to take me places because you couldn't go unless I went with you.
Hey, and I introduced you to your future husband. Anyway.
Nobody forced you to do that, though.
Oh my goodness.
Actually, you did force me to do that.
Yeah,
you were
I did.
Like, please go to church with me. Please go to church with me.
I did.
Please go to church with me.
I
And
had
was
two
like,
guys in mind
"Ugh."
for you.
Oh, shush. Anyway, but just yeah. And sometimes I picked up on the rejection and I carried it too.
Well, thank you for telling me. I didn't know that you felt that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I knew you did. I know you felt as a kid that they were comparing us.
Yeah.
I know you have to felt that.
I do want to say, like, there's a lot that I've, like, I don't know, I just feel like there's so much to apologize for sometimes.
I know.
But,
I feel
Right.
that way too.
But, like, especially when you were with your ex-husband, and I didn't know what the hell was going on with you.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I mean,
Same.
there's a lot that I need to apologize for as far as that goes. And I feel like we've talked about that and everything, but I mean, I feel so, like, knowing what I know now, I wish I could go back and be like, Brooke, I'm getting you the hell out of this place.
Yeah.
You're going to stop taking these medications, and, like, I'm taking you away. That's what we're going to do.
I would have gone right back. I wasn't ready.
Well,
Abused
I'd like
women.
to believe that I could help.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And you guys don't have anything to apologize for. I don't hold anybody responsible that isn't responsible. You know, it's just a part of my story, and it's in this nice little box over here, and
Yeah.
you go on.
With that, I do have one last question for you
And I have
To
one last
close.
answer.
to close with this. So
Yes.
you talked a lot about many different topics and things that people struggle with today.
Mm-hmm.
Men, women, no matter who you are, where you come from, it doesn't matter. These are very real things that people struggle with. What do you want whoever's listening to this podcast to take away from your story? What do you want them to know about the struggles? What do you think? What do you want them to know?
I think from the beginning of the podcast, I've always said what happened to you is not who you are. And you do have a choice. You can be a victim. You can go around life with these scars and these wounds and make life miserable for you and everyone else and hurt other people. Or you can choose to break the cycle, do the hard work, and become victorious and become something so powerful. When you walk in a room, no one knows. No one knows you were abused that way because of how deeply you love and how joyful you are. And that can only happen when you put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter. Like, if all this stuff happened to me, and that is one thing that I always go back to. I will always watch documentaries of people of the Jewish concentration camps in Auschwitz and all over Europe, because it's my dream to meet one of those survivors.
You need to hurry up.
And that's, yeah.
Well, times,
Oh,
There
I
aren't
thought
that
you
many.
meant no. I
No,
thought
there
you
aren't-
meant because
there
of,
aren't that many survivors left.
Yeah, no, she thought you meant.
I know. I was like, oh, okay.
I knew what you meant.
No.
but she didn't get it.
We all give our sister a look like, what?
Sorry, y'all. There aren't that
but-
many left, and I wasn't saying that in
No,
in an insensitive way. It's just It's true. Anyways.
No, she thought that you meant for her to stop talking.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, if they can go through that and still have these wonderful souls that are gentle and loving, we have no excuse, because what I've been through is nothing compared to what some of these kids right now in the foster system are going through. There's always someone who's going to have it worse than you.
Kids who are being trafficked.
Yeah, like
Adults who are being trafficked. It's
so
just-
Yeah.
maybe it happened. Maybe it was allowed to happen so you could do the hard work and heal and be the voice for someone who would not have a voice.
Yeah. Well, Brooke, thank you again for telling your story and answering our questions. I know this wasn't easy. I think that's all we have for this episode, though. So tune in to our next episode where we are going to hear Rachel's story. So we'll look forward to hearing that.
So Rachel's laughing.
As she's laughing.
She's very excited about this. We love you guys. Please join us again. The episodes won't be always as triggering.
I know we say that, and it
And then
seems
they're
like
always-
we're lying.
Mine will have more humor in it. Mine will have more humor in it only because that's how I deal with things. Is more from a. Hopefully, it will be more light.
But thanks, guys. We love you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on our journey. We don't have everything figured out yet. We've never said that. But we just thought we could be on this journey together. So we really appreciate you being here with us.